Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So, who are the most undervalued differential picks in FPL right now? Well, in order to find that out, we first need to take a look at who the teams to target are. These are currently Arsenal, Man City, Leeds, Villa, Wolves, and Man United, who have the best fixtures between now and the end of the season, which is game week 38. Now, some of these teams double in game week 33 and therefore blank in 34. I think you have to look at it team dependently as to whether you want to attack the double or whether you're just going to keep players who are consistently playing every week. We've got a mixture of those players for you here today. We're actually going to focus on players mainly from these teams, but we do give some honourable mentions to standout players from other teams who you maybe should get in, regardless of their fixtures or even whether they're a differential. So on to the goalkeepers, and this is the chart for the last 6 game weeks in FPL. We're looking at expected goals conceded versus clean sheets for goalkeepers who are under 10% owned in FPL. That's what a differential is. Anyone who is a player in FPL who is under 10% owned by FPL managers, that's what we would consider. So ideally, we're looking for goalkeepers in this area here. Goalkeepers who have low expected goals conceded, but also have quite high clean sheets as well. That combination is great because basically, if a goalkeeper is keeping clean sheets, but they're conceding quite a high number of expected goals, then therefore those clean sheets are unlikely to continue. But also, if a goalkeeper is conceding few amount of expected goals, but they're not able to keep clean sheets, that means they're conceding daft goals that maybe they shouldn't be, and you can't quite rely on them. So the first goalkeeper we're going to look at is not even on the fixtures list. It's Petrovic. Now he has a double in 33, which is why he's being mentioned here, combined with the fact that he's got 3 clean sheets in his last 6 games. So going into a double game week, he probably is the best performing goalkeeper in FPL for the last 6 weeks. We've also got Darlow and Martinez here. Now, they are on the fixture list for Villa and Leeds, respectively. And Carl Darlow is that really cheap goalkeeper playing for Leeds that also has a double. If you're on a wild card or a free hit in 33 and you're looking for a cheap goalkeeper that could keep a clean sheet, Darlow is probably the one you could go for. Jose Sa is another one. Whilst he doesn't have any doubles, he is able to keep clean sheets, 2 in the last 6, 4.2 million. I think that's a pretty good shout for maybe you're looking for a rotation keeper that is got good fixtures. Leeds and Wolves both have really good fixtures between now and the end of the season. I think either of those are ahead of Dubravka for the cheap keepers. Finally, we're going to take a look at Donnarumma, someone who, from Man City, is a lot more expensive than most of the goalkeepers we're looking at here. However, with his low expected goals conceded and the fact that he's probably going to play week in, week out, even though James Trafford is there, I think Donnarumma, as long as the league is, still within reach for Man City, we can expect him to start for them. However, if you're thinking of getting in Donnarumma for the double game week, I would just go for 3 outfield Man City players instead. I think you've got Haaland, Semenyo, Nunes, O'Reilly. All 4 of them are definitely ahead of Donnarumma in the FPL Man City player order for me, and there's probably a couple more you could throw in there as well. So when we compare these goalkeepers to the goalkeepers who are just more highly owned in FPL, we can see once again that there's nobody in this space in the whole of FPL goalkeepers. And I do promise you, there have been goalkeepers in this area over the course of the season. Maybe sometimes it's probably just Raya, but we have had some others in there as well. It just goes to show right now there's not a lot of good goalkeeper options. And I think that is something worth bearing in mind. We talked about Petrovic earlier, and whilst he's kept 3 clean sheets in 6 games, he has been expected to concede about 11, 12 goals in that time frame. So he's been expected to concede about 2 goals per game, and he's still somehow managed to keep 3 clean sheets. It's probably not sustainable. So from these goalkeepers, we've got Sanchez, Dubravka, and Raya here. And I think any of these goalkeepers, I don't know if you'd go for them right about now, even though Sanchez has that double in 33. No clean sheets in the last 6 is not good like predictions for future points. And I think sometimes we look at a goalkeeper from a club like Chelsea, and I've done it as well, and you think, well, they've got a double game week. They're bound to keep at least 1 clean sheet. Well, it doesn't really matter when those games are getting played. If they've not kept any clean sheets in the last six, they're unlikely to somehow magic up one or two clean sheets. So into the defenders, and we're looking at season stats here. And I really like this chart, minutes per points versus goals conceded. For those of you that are new to the channel, minutes per point basically means how many minutes does a player need to be on the pitch for in order to earn 1 point in FPL. Now, to make this chart, not only did they have to be a differential, they also had to have played at least 20 games so far this season. And really, we're looking for defenders in and around this space here. So, thinking of teams that we were targeting on the fixture list at the start, Man City defenders are really good. O'Reilly, Ruben Diaz, and Matthias Nunes all fit right where we would like in this section for not taking that long to get an FPL point when they're on the pitch. If I was picking of any of these Man City players, I would go O'Reilly first, not just because he's the cheapest, but mainly because he's the most attacking in terms of actual goal threat. Nunes is good for assists, but we know he's going to play right back no matter what. O'Reilly has that potential to also play in midfield. Also looking at Rodon and Gudmundsson from Leeds, maybe you're bench boosting in game week 33 and you need those cheap defenders. I do like the Leeds fixtures for that double. I think Rodon would be ahead of it, Gudmundsson, for me, but I think either of them are really good picks. Elsewhere, we're looking at Aston Villa defenders. Now, they're one of those teams that don't have a double, but then they also don't blank. Maybe you've used your free hit chip. Maybe you're just looking for players that are going to give you that consistency. I think Matty Cash and Conser quite good. The problem is with Conser, he doesn't really give you goal threat and he doesn't really give you defcon. You're solely relying on clean sheets. Bit of good old FPL, point gathering there, just relying on defenders for their clean sheets. Matty Cash, on the other hand, does give you some attacking threat and has been out for a bit. Is expected just to be back and playing 90 minutes, but I think that is something to bear in mind when considering Villa. So Van Hecker from Brighton, whilst Brighton aren't on the teams to target, Brighton do have a double, and he is a popular defender. I would just bear in mind that he doesn't have a ton of goal threat himself. He is able to get defcon more often than not, and he is just bordering in this space, which is what we would like to see our defenders in. I think he's a good pickup at 4.5 million, but I wouldn't just sacrifice, a points hit to get him in, say. I don't think he's going to set the world alight with his points. Brighton are quite inconsistent, and I think one clean sheet out of those two games will be more than enough. So comparing these defenders with the more highly owned defenders in FPL, we can see that what stands out immediately is the Arsenal defenders. Not only are they on the teams to target for good fixtures, they don't have that double fixture. They're playing every week. So if you're not on a wild card or a free hit, you've just got free transfers to use. I really like Arsenal's fixtures for the rest of the season. You probably already own Gabriel. I think getting in another would also be a good shout. Someone like a Saliba or a Timber if he's fit. I think Timber's probably not the most reliable right now. I would go for Calafiori ahead of someone like a Timber. Calafiori was really attacking at the start of the season, but has missed quite a lot of time, although he has been back recently. Elsewhere at the top, we've kind of got the Senesi, Tior, Van Dijk trio here of popular defenders are, getting DEFCON, but we also think they could have some attacking threat. I think if you had to order them, probably would go for Senesi, then Tior, then Van Dijk in that order. I just think Senesi with Bournemouth having the double up immediately is a good pickup. You can always bench him for 34 or use your free hit if you've got that. But Bournemouth's fixtures from here on out don't look the worst in the world. But even when they're playing difficult teams, a defender getting DEFCON, that's almost more likely when they're playing those teams. So into midfield, and we are going to look at expected goal involvements versus actual goal involvements for the last 6 game weeks. And what stands out is Anthony Gordon is head and shoulders above every other differential midfielder. Unfortunately, Newcastle didn't make the fixtures lists at the start, and Anthony Gordon is one of those players that people are just hot and cold on a lot. He seems to be starting up front for Newcastle, but then again, that's not a guarantee to continue. Minutes have improved, but he's still getting taken off early. Looks to be on penalties, but if he's not on the pitch when Newcastle get a penalty, does it really matter? and now Newcastle aren't doubling. A lot of people have decided to go cold on him. I think he's quite a good pickup as it is. Maybe in a couple of game weeks. I don't think you need to get him in unless you don't have your free hit, say. You just want a player that plays every week. I wouldn't necessarily get in Anthony Gordon because he's just not going to have as much high upside as those midfielders who are doubling. Tavernier from Bournemouth is someone who's doubling. I've highlighted him because not only does he have that double game week, he's really underperforming his expected goal involvements over the last 6 game weeks. It tells me he's getting the chances, he's just not converting. And if he keeps this up, sooner or later, he will get an attacking return. It's a bit like the opposite of Anthony Gordon in a way. Anthony Gordon is someone that looks like he can maintain that output, got 4 returns and is expected to have had 4. Tavernier is more like he's expected to have had 3, but only gotten 1. Therefore, that big points haul should be incoming in the near future. Someone like Ndai, again, Everton, not on the fixture list. We're giving a ton of honourable mentions today, but I would rather just give the players as well that I think are really good regardless, and Ndai is one of them. Everton have some really good games dotted about. If you've got a lot of chips and you're planning on just sort of putting them in where it fits best, check Everton's fixtures alongside your team's timeline for the rest of the year, because Iliman Ndai is someone that will be going under the radar on a lot of teams, can be on set pieces and penalties for Everton, and is really attacking. Missed that chunk of time with the African Cup of Nations, but now he's back and playing more regularly. I think he's someone that a lot of people won't get in on those free transfers. Bukayo Saka, someone that we have to mention because he's a premium midfielder playing for Arsenal. Currently injured at the moment, doing all right across the season. A lot of people think he's underperforming, and he's not necessarily getting the amount of attacking returns we would want from someone at that price, but he is still ticking over 3 attacking returns in the last 6 game weeks, 1 in every 2. It's absolutely fine. A lot of people will be looking at Gabriel and then moving off someone like Raya for the doubles and blanks because Arsenal don't double. Therefore, there are some free Arsenal slots available, maybe on a Declan Rice, but then Saka, with the Arsenal defenders being sort of injured, not playing consistently, Saka could be that next player that not only are a lot of people overlooking, but he's someone that is totally affordable in a season where there's just not a lot of premium players. Now, Cherky is one of those players that you don't necessarily want all season, but if you're doubling and you've got a free hit, say in game week 33, or you've got some free transfers that you just want to use, he could be one of those high upside players that not many people are considering. Maybe they just don't want to get in a player they're not sure of on the Man City minutes. But if you've got Haaland, Semenyo, and you've just got one other space, maybe you don't want a Man City defender, I think Cherky could be that sneaky high upside that no one else is considering that can shoot you up those mini leagues. Rounding out this chart, we're going to talk about Matthias Cunha from Man United, someone who is really overperforming his goal involvement and at the same time is also considered to be underperforming in real life, not necessarily setting the world alight for Man United. If you have him, I would consider selling to really any of these other midfielders. I think they're good options, apart from Saka until he's fit. Any of Shirky, Tavernier, and Dye or Gordon, depending on your team and chip strategy, are probably better picks than Cunha. So when we compare these midfielders to the other midfielders in FPL, we've obviously got Bruno Fernandes up at the top, someone who is just a must-have in your team, regardless of whether he's doubling or not. He's got single game weeks every week. I think he's absolutely fine to own. I wouldn't rush to sell him, even if you're bench boosting in 33. Have him on your bench. He'll probably outscore a lot of double players. Semenyo, again, similar to Bruno Fernandes in the fact that he is just getting a lot of minutes right now, and I do expect that to continue. Man City might rotate as the season goes on, but in the immediate few game weeks, I think he's a really good pick and not someone I'd be looking at getting rid of anytime soon. So up front, we've got the differential forwards, and once again, like the midfielders, we're looking at expected goal involvements versus actual goal involvements for the last 6 game weeks of differential forwards. And I'm going to talk about Benjamin Sesko here, not someone who is getting a ton of minutes, and his form might not be sustainable, but 4 goals in the last 6 weeks when he's supposed to be getting about 1.5. He's a really stand-out player, not sustainable, but in a good run of form with good fixtures like we saw at the start of the video. I don't see why he can't continue to score some goals if his minutes increase. Down at the other side of the chart, we've got Calvert-Lewin because he missed that penalty the other week. And that's kind of saying, if you get a penalty, that's one expected goal. If you miss it, you're expected to have had one and you've scored not one. So that's why it kind of distorts the data a little bit. But for a forward that is underperforming his data, with Leeds having not only good fixtures for the rest of the season, but also a double up in 33, I think he has to be a priority transfer in, especially considering he's a differential option. We've also got Ollie Watkins here. Now, Villa, again, one of those teams who play every week. A lot of people will be ignoring Watkins, but after the doubles and blanks have kind of settled from game week 34 onwards, could Ollie Watkins be that player who maybe, once that ticket to the World Cup is going to go on a little run of form for Aston Villa as they push for Champions League qualifications? So finally, we're going to look at comparing this to the highly owned forwards in FPL. And of course, we've got João Pedro at the top here. Now, normally I would be wary of João Pedro, but in that double game week in 33, I think you've just got to find a way to get him in. I'm considering him for my own team, and it's really, I look at it in a stage where, right, who are the players that not only do I want, but who are the players that could really hurt my rank if I didn't own them? And he definitely fits into that latter category of even if you're not too keen on him, could he hurt your rank if he does really well? Absolutely. Therefore, he becomes a good option. Bit of a negative way of looking at it, but he does become a good option for your team. We're also going to take a look at Gyökeres and Haaland here, both players whose teams are top of the leagues and also got good fixtures. Gyökeres, a bit like Saka, if you're not too keen on the Arsenal defenders, you've got Gabriel, you don't really know where to go. If you have a space up front after game week 34, Arsenal have some really good fixtures to see out the end of the season, and he's someone that's quite on form as it is, close enough to the line of best fit to say that is sustainable if he continues playing. And the same for Erling Haaland. A lot of people went cold on him recently. However, that hat trick in the FA Cup will have done wonders for his confidence, and I can expect to see a really good end to the season for him. So to finish, we're going to take a look at the priority transfer table, and this kind of depends on your chip strategy as to whether you want players who are going to double in 33 or you just want players who are going to play every week. I've put O'Reilly, Calvert-Lewin and Tavernier at the top. All three of them have that double game week, as does Rodon just beneath. I think all of them are great, to be honest. I think if you're looking for a defender, forward or midfielder, they're probably the ones you get in each position. Then you could look at Rodon as a cheap option if you're planning on bench boosting. Then I've got Watkins, who does play every week. I think he's a good, solid player, but maybe not someone that you look at until game week 35 onwards. Then Van Hecke and Welbeck. I'm just not too convinced in someone like Van Hecke in his ability to get points in loads of different ways, such as like DEFCON, possibly, but not really an attacking threat. And then Welbeck, whilst he does double, is not expected to play every week. And then you kind of, as you go down the chart, just got players that are maybe less impactful as the ones further up, in my opinion. So in conclusion, I think O'Reilly, Calvert-Lewin and Tavernier are all priority transfers to get in, especially if you're looking to attack the double in 33. So that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you think you'd put any other players in this list or if I've missed any out completely. Also, let me know if you've got any questions as well. Pop it in the comments. I will always get back to you. Go check out my latest videos as well, including the chip strategy video from yesterday that should hopefully help you out depending on how many chips you've got left. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.